I want to start with Harry's comment, which I really believe is true. His description of the ECHR is we seem to outsource control of so many parts of this country to a body set up 70 years ago that is not fit for purpose at all.
Yeah, it's a very good description of it. When people voted to leave the European Union, they voted in general to get us away from all these sorts of organisations. I don't think there was a high salience that there were all these other entities that we were going to be kind of stuck in. And yet this is what's happened. And we find that when it was the EU that we would complain about lots of these things, and the EU rightly was getting in the way, now it's all these other bodies. And this idea that, well, Winston Churchill set it up, like, yeah. The idea was that we'd seen in Europe a total dereliction of actual human rights, because why? The Nazis had gone around gassing people and killing everybody and all the rest of it, and therefore the rule of law was needed to be reinstated right across the continent, and British judges were the ones to go and do that, because we have already had centuries of the rule of law here. The common law was invented here. All the kind of, going back to habeas corpus 800 years ago, going back hundreds of years before that, and kind of Anglo-Saxon ideas of justice. We've had a very long, proud history here, and we didn't need the ECHR before that because we had all this kind of law, and so it's for other people. And this idea now that it's become this this horrendous body full of activist judges is the reason why I agree. I think we need to leave it. And it reminds me, I think it's Conquest's third law of politics, that any organisation that it is not explicitly right-wing will eventually become left-wing, and that is what's happened with the ECHR.
Somebody's written here, Jez, Churchill loved the ECHR. What the bloody hell do you think he would feel about it being used in the way it is? Can you imagine him agreeing to somebody not leaving this country? They're a criminal because their son won't like chicken nuggets. We had two more examples today. An illegal migrant, Iraqi migrant, James, who fled his home country over his partner and alleged exam fraud, has avoided deportation from us back there after claiming a people smuggler threw away his ID and phone. You smile, I get more mad. And today a bid to deport an Albanian criminal has been overturned on human rights grounds as his son has a learning disability. We are fast becoming a laughing stock. This ECHR is allowing people to take the whatsit out of us. They're and I have to say, I was talking to somebody about it earlier, I'd be laughing all over my face if I was a left-wing human rights lawyer, wouldn't you, JP?
Yeah, absolutely right. There's loads of money in it for these people. There's
800 quid a day.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? And the problem we've got is that the Prime Minister built his whole career on this kind of stuff. And this is why he's in such a bind. He can't really go against it, not only because he'll stop being invited to fancy lefty-loving dinner parties in Islington and all the rest of it, but that his whole career will be proven to have been built on a load of cobblers. That's the problem, right? Is this ECHR here in the room with us now? You'd have to ask him, you know? This is a problem. And it's a continuation of what I think Tony Blair's government did, which was to decay and destroy much of the British Constitution that would work so well, as we just said, for hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's not just about sort of leaving the ECHR. The problem is that we have woven reference to it and deference to it through so many bits of domestic statute. The Human Rights Act of 1998 was described back then as bringing our rights back home. And I've clashed on this show against idiot lefties who would, go and say, oh, it's so wonderful that we've got the Human Rights Act of 1998. Well, as if in 1997 people were going around being summarily executed.
Absolutely.
Going around being able to rob you and take your car and all. No, it's obvious nonsense. I almost said a rude word then.
It is getting to the point where I think average men and women, families across the United Kingdom, are going to demand that something's done. Can I talk about the other big thing today? Rachel Reeves, or Rachel Thieves, as I call her. Take a look at her, ladies and gentlemen. She looks like Richard III. She is threatening to risk the wrath of the unions and could cut up to 50,000 civil service jobs, which begs me to ask one question, JP. If the Labour Party can potentially find 50,000 useless souls in Whitehall that we're paying for, what's the reality genuinely of how many people are doing jobs that we don't need and having money? I mean, I need Elon Musk in Whitehall tomorrow. That's what I think.
Yeah, absolutely right. The Adam Smith Institute, of which I'm a senior fellow, did a really terrifying, I was going to call it great, a terrifying paper last week that highlighted that something like 52% of everybody in the United Kingdom is in some way now totally reliant on the state, whether they work directly for the state or they get all their income from the state, or even that their job wouldn't exist without the state paying for it. That's terrifying, 52%. And this is moving towards dangerously commie levels, and it distorts and it warps all the kind of incentives that you'd want from a healthy society. That means, you take out all the other people who are in full-time education or whatever else. The number of people who we've got actually supporting the edifice of the state, the people who are listening today who work in small or large businesses, there are smaller and smaller number of people supporting a larger and larger number of people. And so even if all of these civil servants were great and doing great work, which they aren't and they're not, we would have to be making lots of savings in other areas. And I can tell you for a start, there were so many people in the departments in which I worked who were doing non-jobs, and that's just not acceptable because they're being paid for by those people at home listening who are slaving away every day to make ends meet. I
said to Harry, JP, maybe I see it too simplistically. I believe there will be a surge in a call for a Trump-esque person. Before all the bedwetters, just hear me out 1 minute. The Orange Man, baby, there's much about him that I don't like. But can you imagine, whether it's left, centre or right, a politician standing up and saying, do you know what, not only do I hear you, I acknowledge you. We can pretend that we are 70 years old. We're not. The world has changed. We are not able to be the leader of almost everything because we are skint. We cannot even afford the interest on the money that we owe, and thus I cannot give to everybody and spread Britishness everywhere because I've got people freezing and starving and homeless. I need to look after them, and you can call that every name under the sun. I believe the British people would lap that up, James Price, genuinely lap that up.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what's nice is that all of our problems, almost all of our problems, are self-inflicted.
Yes.
They've been created by deliberate policy decisions to make us poorer, to make us less safe, and to make us less free in the name of things that most of us didn't vote for. Mass migration, being soft on terrorists, spending more money on foreigners than we do on people here, all these sorts of things. They're all things that could be reversed. All the sorts of anti-business policies and regulations and things like that that are making us poorer, afuera. We could get rid of all of that stuff. You wouldn't necessarily even need an uber charismatic figure like Donald Trump for good or ill. In a way, you want someone who kind of talks cuddly, soft left language while being incredibly ruthless. And of course, my party, the Conservatives, did the opposite. We started to talk quite tough, talk to the right, and then just allowed the blob, the civil service, to make us govern to the left. And that's why we've fallen into such a state that we're in now. And I think that everybody knows that the country is going in the wrong direction, right? We're veering off course. And the more you veer off course, the more acute, the more breakneck the course correction is required will be. So the best day to do this was yesterday. The next best day is today. But the longer we leave it, and I think we're going to leave it for another 4 years because Labour have got all the structural incentives not to do anything better.
That's true.
Stay and hop to the unions, stay and hop to the ECHR, stay and hop to all the ghastly globalist charities and all that kind of stuff. They're not going to fix it. So the course correction that comes, whether it's the Conservative Party or the Reform Party or another party or a confluence of all of them, they're going to have to do what Maggie ended up doing in the 80s, which was some quite unpleasant things in some ways, because not because she wanted to, but because she had to, because all the weak men in the decades before didn't have the stomach to do what
and however much people hated that, history showed, and there were mistakes that Margaret Thatcher made, history showed that actually being strong and doing that is important.